Back in 44 BCE, the entire future of the Roman Republic didn't come down to a battle. No, it came down to a single speech. We're about to dive into an absolute masterclass in persuasion, Mark Antony's funeral oration for Julius Caesar. This was the moment where a few carefully chosen words unleashed a political firestorm that would literally burn down a republic and give birth to an empire. You've probably heard these lines before, right? They're some of the most famous words Shakespeare ever wrote, and they are the perfect opening shot in Antony's brilliant rhetorical assault. He steps up and says, "Hey, I'm just here to bury the guy, not to sing his praises." But what he actually does is so much more cunning. He methodically and masterfully turns an entire city against its new leaders, all while pretending to be completely neutral. So here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start by setting the scene in a very tense Rome. Then we'll look at the huge gamble Antony took. After that, we'll deconstruct his manipulative tactics step by step. We'll see exactly how he lit the fuse of rebellion. And finally, we'll examine the catastrophic fallout that ended Roman liberty for good. To really get why Antony's speech was so incredibly powerful, you first have to picture the scene. Rome was basically a powder keg just waiting for a spark. And the men who killed Caesar? They thought they were holding all the matches. And believe me, this all went down fast. On the Ides of March, Caesar is assassinated. That very same day, the leader of the conspiracy, Brutus, gives a speech to the people. He convinces them that the murder was a necessary evil to save Rome. And for a minute there, it actually works. But just 5 days later, Antony gets his turn to speak. Now, this is absolutely crucial to remember. Antony was walking into a hostile crowd. This was not his home turf. Brutus had already won them over with his logical reasoned speech. The people actually supported the assassins, believing they were heroes who'd saved Rome from a tyrant. The conspirators were sure they had the whole situation under control. So Antony, Caesar's loyal friend and second in command, steps up and makes what sounds like a totally reasonable request. He just wants to speak at his friend's funeral. This one request, and Brutus's fateful decision to say yes, would become the conspirators' single biggest mistake. And right away, this sets off a huge disagreement between the conspirators. You had Cassius, the more pragmatic, street-smart one, who saw the danger immediately. He knew Antony was trouble. But Brutus, who was obsessed with appearing noble and honorable, overruled him. He figured letting Antony speak would make them look confident and fair. It was a miscalculation of epic proportions. Okay, so Brutus wasn't totally naive. He tried to put Antony in a rhetorical box. He laid down some very strict rules. Antony was forbidden from blaming them, he had to speak after Brutus had already won the crowd, and he had to start by saying he was only there because they allowed him to be. This makes what Antony pulls off next even more mind-blowing. All right, so the stage is set. Antony steps up, and he's got all these rules he's supposed to follow. What happens next is, quite literally, one of the most effective pieces of political persuasion in all of human history, as he systematically turns that crowd from cheering supporters into a bloodthirsty mob. So how does he do it? Well, he's got this incredible 4-step playbook. First, he disarms everyone with that humble opening. Then he unleashes his deadliest weapon, irony. He keeps calling Brutus and the others honorable men again and again and again, all while listing Caesar's good deeds. The repetition makes the word honorable drip with sarcasm. He forges an emotional bond, even stopping to cry, before he brings out his showstoppers, the physical proof. And this just perfectly shows you the difference between these two men and their strategies. Brutus appealed to logic, to what the Greeks called logos. He gave a rational, almost academic argument for why Caesar had to go. But Antony? Nah. He went straight for the heart. He used poetry, emotion, pathos. He knew that a grieving, confused crowd isn't moved by reason, it's moved by passion. So Antony has laid the groundwork. He's planted the seeds of doubt, he's made them feel his sorrow, and now he's about to turn all of that simmering grief into pure white-hot rage. And you have to understand, this wasn't just some guy talking. This was a performance, a piece of theater. And honestly, nobody captured that better than Marlon Brando in the 1953 movie Julius Caesar, which, by the way, got a well-deserved nomination for Best Picture. His version of Antony really shows you the raw, manipulative showmanship at play here. And of course, every great performance needs its props. First, he dangles Caesar's will in front of them, teasing that its contents would inflame them because of Caesar's generosity.
Then, the masterstroke. He holds up Caesar's bloody toga, pointing to each and every tear, naming the honorable man who made it. And for the grand finale, he pulls back the sheet and reveals Caesar's mutilated corpse for all to see. He makes the murder real, physical, and deeply personal.
He's done it. He has completely flipped the crowd. And as he watches the chaos he's just unleashed begin to boil over, he says to himself these chilling words. He has lit the fuse, and now he just steps back to watch the city burn. His work is done. And the explosion is immediate. We're talking instant, violent chaos. The citizens, now a furious mob, start ripping up benches, stalls, anything they can get their hands on, to create a massive funeral pyre for Caesar right there in the forum. Then they grab flaming torches from the fire and go hunting for the conspirators, ready to burn their houses to the ground. You see, Antony's speech did way more than just avenge a friend. It was the rhetorical act that pulled the trigger on the final, bloody collapse of the Roman Republic. The consequences were swift, and there was no turning back. Now, what's really fascinating is that if you look at the actual historical accounts, they don't all tell the same story. The historian Appian describes this wild performance, even mentioning a mechanical wax model of Caesar that showed all 23 wounds. But Suetonius claims Antony barely spoke at all. But here's the thing. It almost doesn't matter which version is 100% accurate, because the result is always the same. In every single version of the story, Antony's words ignite a firestorm that dooms the Republic. So, what was the fallout? Well, the political dominoes just tumbled one after another. Brutus and Cassius were forced to flee for their lives. Antony teamed up with Caesar's heir, Octavian, and another general, Lepidus, to form a new ruling group that seized absolute power. This kicked off a whole new, devastating round of civil wars that would ultimately destroy the very republic that conspirators had killed Caesar to save. Antony's speech is this powerful and frankly terrifying reminder that rhetoric is not just talk. The right words, spoken to the right audience at the right time, can be more powerful than any weapon, more devastating than any army. And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. When have you seen words, not weapons, change the course of history?